Hi, everyone. My name's Kennedy McChrystal, and I'm here to discuss with you all about Module One's readings, which were chapters 1 and 2 of our text, which I felt were a really great introduction into the course and really made me be reflective on my current practices as a leader, what I want to be as a leader, and how my school actually fosters these different types of leadership. So, the first one that we're going to talk about, and I kind of incorporated the ways of knowing along with the leadership stance that are in my school and what I'm currently doing now. Um, so to start us off with instrumental knower, these words came from the text as well. It says follow rules, perfectionist, limited interest in reflection or collaboration. And so these were kind of just some key takeaways from that portion of chapter 2. I bolded follow rules and perfectionist because I felt as though those were qualities that I possessed. Um, and so I just kind of wanted to make note of what I saw myself as I read through the chapter. And so those were two that I felt described me. Um, I'm a perfectionist. I'm really hard on myself, and I just want everything to be perfect all the time, even though I know that that's not realistic. And also following rules, expectations, especially as a new teacher, that's really important to get the gist of things at my school. Um, a quote from the text said, technical, concrete learning that educators might need when first adopting new practices. And so I pulled this quote from the text because it really resonated with my current situation, which I talk about in the leadership stance here. So my school currently has adopted a new literacy program. It's called EL Education. It's fabulous. I love the content. I love what we're teaching, but it is very overwhelming. It is very complex and very rigorous for the kids. And so it's been stressful to say the least, learning this new curriculum and being an effective enough teacher to relate with my students. I feel as though I'm the student right now learning. So I'm constantly having to study my material, just like a student would. Um, so with that, we as a school are just being really hard on ourselves on wanting to know exactly how it should be. We want to see examples. We want that model, those rules, those guidelines, that expectations set for us, so that we can use the curriculum correctly in order to benefit our students. Also, with my school, we have committees that serve several different purposes. We're all assigned a committee to work on, and I'm a part of the academic committee where we talk about issues, data, teacher feedback, and right now we are working on um, finding ways to support teachers and meeting their needs. So it kind of ties back in with the new literacy program that my committee is kind of fostering that what we're all wanting, which is to follow the rules, get those expectations and guidelines from this new literacy program. So I felt as though my school and myself were fostering this sort of instrumental knower. Next is the socializing knower. So this is working as a group, collaborative and reflective, and uncomfortable with conflict. Notice that most of those were bolded for me. That's why I put a star there. I felt as though this spoke to me the most. As I love working with groups, I love collaborating. I feel like I'm constantly having to be reflective, especially as a new teacher. I'm still learning kind of what my style is and what's most effective for my students, especially transitioning from a virtual platform to now in person. Obviously, that's changed quite a bit. And so it causes a lot of reflective practice. When it says uncomfortable with conflict, I view conflict as a negative word. Um, and we'll talk more later about, I guess, acceptable conflict. But typically, I am a people pleaser. I want everyone to be satisfied. I know that that's not always realistic, but it's something that I strive for and I think is super important when it comes to collaborating with a group. So, a quote from the text I got was build and support professional learning communities. And I feel as though my school does a fabulous job with ensuring that we are constantly being collaborative, working as groups, being reflective, and really using each other as a tool. Um, my principal challenged all of us to find a leadership role and guide others throughout our school in whatever area we chose. And I chose data binders. That's my focus for this year with my fourth graders that I would love to spread amongst our school. But it requires a lot of group work, collaboration, being reflective, and truly developing that professional learning community. So, to kind of reflect on what all my school does to foster this, of course, we have team meetings. I meet with my teammate. It's just me and one other person teaching fourth grade. She's amazing. So we meet all the time in school, outside of school. We text each other all day long, every night. So really having that sort of relationship with your teammate is a huge game changer and really helps you be collaborative to best meet the needs of your students. Of course, we also have professional learning communities. We have those once a week with our principal, assistant principal, and our grade level team. And those are there for fostering instruction, fostering data. It really is a reflective period in where our administration, sit down and figure out what they can do to support us and what needs we need to better benefit our students. Of course, we have SST meetings, which is the student support team. That is where we are working with intervention students and meeting those needs for students that are falling behind, which we all know is super important, especially at a young age. So, that's something where we really have to work as a group with interventionists, with the special education team, with administration, in order to meet the needs of all of those students. We also do something vertical teams. We've only done one this year so far, but it's really interesting to work with other grade level teams. Typically, we either meet as 3 through 5, since I'm intermediate, which has been very beneficial. We've also done something similar of at each table in our library, one person from each grade level is represented. And so we might look at assessment data, or we might look at the first unit assessment in our literacy module and kind of see how those all come together across grade levels and what all of our students are expected to know, and how it all kind of works together. We also have faculty meetings once a week, which is a time to reflect, and also they ensure that that's professional development for us. Typically, during faculty meeting, we are working on some sort of goal as our school or as a group. And then, like I mentioned previously, we have our committees. So I really think that this is the type of leader that I am and want to continue growing at. And I really think it's the socializing knower is something that's being fostered throughout my school. Lastly, we have the authoring knower, sorry. So that is reflective, consider personal goals and ideas, able to stand in opposition to a group, and expect and accept conflict. So again, I bolded most of these. Just like before, we have to be reflective as educators. Um, it's important that we are reflecting on our practices in order to meet the needs of all of our students, and ensure that we're doing our job. Considering personal goals and ideas, of course, this is something that, as a new teacher, like I said, I'm trying to foster and build in my classroom, finding my style, what I want as a teacher, what I want for my students, and how I want to get my students where they need to be. And then this is where I was kind of talking about conflict earlier, able to stand in opposition to a group. And I think of standing in opposition as more of a respectful manner instead of using the word conflict. Um, of course, there will always be conflict with something. Not everyone will always agree, but I think it's firm to stand in opposition for something if it's in benefit of your students in your classroom and your environment. So for this knower, the quote that I pulled was question assumptions and become a more reflective practitioner. And so when I heard that quote, it made me think of higher order thinking, wondering why we do this, should we do this, wondering different things, kind of figuring out next steps based on this. And it requires a lot of reflection. But ultimately, I feel as though this will bring you to be a stronger educator, a stronger team member, a stronger leader in your building. So I definitely resonated with this one as well. So for the leadership stance, I put new literacy program again, like I mentioned earlier. I feel like this one applies to this because we're in the middle of learning this new literacy program, but we're also wanting to ensure that we're staying true to ourselves and knowing that we've got it. We kind of joke that we don't want to sound like robots and we want to make the learning our own and comfortable for our students, for ourselves. And obviously, that takes a lot of reflection. I feel as though every night when I come home, I'm reflecting on my literacy lesson and adjusting for the next day. Um, it's all about learning your students, and especially with this new program, learning how to be the teacher you want to be uh, with these high expectations. I also talked about being an advocate for my students. I think that this is kind of what I was talking about when I say standing in opposition. The classes that we get are such a unique combination of kids that you have to be an advocate for them and you know what's best for them. And I think that applies to this and when it comes to standing in opposition. And of course, like we've mentioned, reflective practices throughout. Um, but I feel as though my school fosters all of these. Like I've mentioned, kind of in my leadership stance and each of these categories, but I definitely feel as though I'm the socializing knower, and I'm anxious to see how my learning in this course might change some of my thinking, how my experience in my classroom continues to adjust my thinking, and ultimately being reflective on myself as a leader.